Hey guys, so I want to talk today about morality and sort of the moral passion plays that we're all sort of a party to in society, and how they've changed and developed over the years, and how I think they go a little bit wrong sometimes. And so, I mean, a passion play, of course, is something that goes back to ancient times, but it's most famously um, if you're at church during Easter time, you might see like this sort of little performance of the story of Jesus, of the crucifixion and the resurrection. And the idea is sort of that in watching it, you internalize certain truths, right? You internalize certain psychological realities that you wouldn't necessarily internalize just by somebody telling you and directly with words, right? Um, and so I think to kind of before we go into the comparison I'm going to make, um, and the parallels I'm going to draw, I think it's important to say that there's a moral there's certain moral symbolism that's very prevalent, right? I mean, you could argue the primary moral symbolism that we employ, the primary moral language that we use, and the way we look at moral situations, um, increasingly revolves around this idea of marginalized or oppressed groups, marginalized or oppressed people. Um, and there's kind of an inference that's made on some level, I think, where if you protect the weak, if you protect the vulnerable, it means you protect the whole. In other words, if we can focus on this as a society and we can help them, it means we are a good society that helps everybody. And in that sense, the vulnerable kind of become the symbol of the good society, of so that there's this kind of, I don't know if I call it sleight of hand or just a sort of inference that you make at some level that, okay, if we help these people, we're helping the whole. If we help these people, we're a good society. And they, in a sense, become the avatar, right? Whether it's, I mean, most notably, in recent times, it's been George Floyd. But other, whether it's specific people like that or just sort of the idea of this or that oppressed group, it's sort of like this is morally the avatar through which we perceive the prospect of a moral and just society. Um, and I say that, I make that point because that's sort of the illusion I'm going to draw. That's the parallel I'm going to draw here, with the story of Jesus, right? With the passion. So the passion play of Jesus, right, is this represents sort of an older, more traditional morality. And so yeah, like what do you internalize when you watch the passion play of Jesus, when you watch especially the story of the crucifixion and the resurrection and what that's supposed to mean? What are the messages you're getting, right? I feel like a lot of it revolves around this idea of sort of redemption through sacrifice, that you can redeem yourself and you can in fact effect great changes, right? In this case, redeem the world via great sacrifice. And in that sense, it also, you also internalize this idea of the worthwhileness of suffering, from witnessing the story of Christ. And there's, a few messages along those lines. I'm sure that people could come up with plenty others. But this is sort of the basis, in large part, of the morality that's represented thereby, right? And that kind of comes to inform how you look at moral situations. It comes to define the moral language with which you speak, in which you speak, and so that's why when you switch it around, you now look at, take George Floyd for instance, right? So George Floyd, basically, if we're being honest, George Floyd is considered good because other people are bad, or because the system is bad, more specifically. George Floyd is somebody who had a lot of flaws, who had committed a lot of crimes, including violent crimes. Um, you know, he had he's not somebody who, you know, in isolation you would necessarily say this is a good person. This is someone who's definitive somehow of virtue, right? He's considered good. He's a martyr. He's a saint because the system is bad and the system took him. And so that's sort of right, like the opening of the passion play, if you want, the first sort of phrasing or framing of the moral problem is that the individual, the noble individual, the vulnerable individual who may be part of a vulnerable group is being held down by some kind of invisible malicious force, which prevents him from living up to his potential, which prevents him from expressing himself in full, which stifles his self-interest, his desires, his feelings. And so we sort of open the scene with the sense of this individual sort of clamped down upon, pushed down upon, pressurized by this again, this malignant force, what we roughly call oppression, right? This downward moving, pressurizing sort of force, which is spiritually, limiting this person. And it's not like, of course, I'm not saying there's zero truth to this. I'm not saying it isn't a thing or worth looking at in any way. But you'll see this as this comes to inform our view of morality. I think it takes a turn, right? So you start with this. You start with the problem, right? The problem situation is, again, this invisible malignant force is pressing down upon the noble individual who is suppressed, and what the implied solution that it sort of ends up moving towards is, well, what was the reaction, right? If George Floyd was the action, what was the reaction? Riots, right? Like literally lighting fires, beating people up, yelling and screaming, stealing, whatever. And everybody cheers. There's 1,000 people behind you saying this is great, right? There's it could be that. It could get on down the line, right? It could be a parade. Let's have a wild parade. Everybody's naked. Everybody's goosing each other. It's like uh, let's see how many let's see how dexterous my ass is, and how many things I can pick up with my ass, and let's scream and cheer, and like kids can watch us jiggling around, and oh yes, how wonderful, how amazing. Or even down to the most mundane levels of, like, on social media, typing out like, oh my gosh, I hate men, or some, kill all men, or like, what is with white people, and of course, a million likes, you're amazing, whatever. The point being that in each case, right, it's sort of like the solution to that initial situation of the pressurized individual, the oppressed individual, acted upon by the malignant, stifling force, which limits his potential, which stifles his self-interest, which stifles his full range of expressive feeling and such. The implied solution is that it cyclically sort of leads toward is this situation where you can just sort of go off, right? You can express something that's either negative or in defiance of some kind of established social boundary, and be cheered for it, right? And be praised for it. And that's important. Like that pairing, right? That situation where I'm expressing something negative or deemed to be inappropriate, and I'm getting cheers. That's the key. That is the counterpoint to the initial situation, right? That sort of defines increasingly our sense of morality and the moral problems of the world. That is the implied counterpoint, is that I have complete emotional freedom. I am now in the power seat. I now have the power. I now have the freedom, because I can scream at someone and slap them in the face and spit on them, and people will cheer, and people will say I did a great thing. I could say fuck all you people, and people will cheer. I'll get a million likes. I'll get, I'll be momentarily famous or whatever. That is the pinnacle to the sort of hindbrain emotional part of us that's witnessing this passion play. That is the ultimate freedom, that is the ultimate power, representing the inversion of the initial situation where we're oppressed and powerless, right? That is the ultimate power. I can do this thing that's crossing the line. I can do this thing where I'm expressing what I suspect to be, my worst feelings or the worst parts of me, and nothing but applause. That's power. Whatever I may want to do, right? I can't say what I'm going to want or feel, over the course of a month, a year. It's very fluid. But if I can do that, I have the power. I can do anything. I know that I can do what I want. And so that's sort of where it's going. Those are the ends that I think this oppression based view of morality is going towards. And of course, that lowers the threshold for what feels like oppression, right? Because once you have that feeling, right, and you cyclically sort of experience building towards that feeling, right, from the sense of oppression to the sense of absolute liberation and power, and then suddenly I care about microaggressions. Suddenly I'm very sensitive to what is that white guy talking too loud, or, like I'm very sensitive all of a sudden to perceived slights, like suddenly I'm some kind of aristocrat. Um, and that's sort of where it goes, right? That's the ultimate trajectory. It's this view of morality that's sort of based ultimately upon the liberation of emotion from the strictures of society, from the strictures of some kind of, of a rational order that says maybe this isn't the right thing. It's the liberation ultimately of emotion and desire, um, which sort of it migrate right. It's sort of like undercover migrates into the moral mind by that aforementioned symbolism, that aforementioned inference, where like, okay, if I'm helping these vulnerable people, that represents helping the all, right? That represents us being the good society. um these people are sort of the avatars of what we aspire towards. These people are the avatars of the society itself, in a sense, because their interests are our society's interests, right? That we improve society, we show that we're a good society, and that we help everybody by helping them. And it's sort of because you're internalizing this view of morality that's based on, again, you're good because others are bad, or because the system is bad, right? The moral goal is merely to liberate your self-interest and your emotion and your desire from this malignant invisible force that oppresses you. It kind of moves very quickly via this, what I'm roughly calling a passion play, from like, we want to be the good society, we want to help everybody, to like, whatever, I do what I want, right? Like, so it very quickly becomes that, as we use this moral language, as we see the good in terms of liberation from oppression. This is kind of what happens, right? You are good not because you are good, not because you actively set about to be virtuous, right? Like that Jesus thing that I was talking about in the beginning, right? That like, I can achieve things through sacrifice. In other words, there's some quantity within me which I can spend to shape the world in a certain way for the better, right? There's and the suffering I may endure in the course of that is worthwhile. This is sort of like, it almost begins as a rallying cry to do that, but then it becomes like, well, actually, good is just, me reactively asserting myself, or asserting myself on behalf of others, perhaps, against this force, this pressurizing force, which I could do not but react to. Right, that my triumph is to react to it, and to take the power back by simply, you know, acting on feeling, or engaging in some kind of emotionally and morally domineering behavior, and asserting myself in that way. Um, So that's really about the gist of it. I thought that was an idea worth talking about. Would love to hear what you got to say about it. If you have comments, please make those comments below. If you do like the video, please like it, upvote it, up thumb it. And if you enjoy this kind of content, hey, why not subscribe? It makes life a lot easier. You don't have to, you know, look around for great content on your hands and knees. It just comes to you. Get that little notification bill. Your food already. You enjoy a little bit of a little feast of the mind, frankly, with your friend Nicholas. But that's about it for me right now. Again, I hope you enjoyed, and please join us next time.